My brothers and sisters, I must tell you what happened. They placed a document in my hands written by Indian diplomats. Not a letter of partnership, not a proposal for dialogue, but a script of humiliation. Every line demanded I bow before Prime Minister Modi. They wanted me to stand before the world and apologize. For what? For daring to explore Pakistan's Islamic Defense Alliance? For daring to seek partnerships that protect African sovereignty rather than Indian profits. That speech was not diplomacy. It was a leash disguised as gratitude. Page after page forced me to abandon Muslim partners. Paragraph after paragraph forced me to renounce future defense agreements. Section after section demanded eternal thanks to India while pledging that Africa would never cooperate with Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, or what they called terror-linked alliances. When I finished reading, I knew exactly what this was. It was not partnership, it was ownership. Modi wanted Africa to act as though it were India's property. They wanted me to choose between $71 billion in trade deals and Africa's dignity, between economic comfort and the sovereignty of a continent. But I did not fly to New Delhi to beg. I flew there to make something clear. Africa bows to no one. This story began 3 weeks earlier. News leaked that Burkina Faso was considering the Pakistan-Saudi Defense Alliance. Within hours, my phone rang, not through normal channels, not through foreign ministers, but directly. Prime Minister Modi on his personal line. His voice was ice. "President Traore," he said, "I hope you understand the implications of what you're considering. India has invested billions in Africa. Those investments come with expectations of loyalty." It was a threat hidden inside courtesy. India had invested billions in Africa. Grain deals worth $14 billion, oil partnerships worth $15 billion, rare earth mining projected at $42 billion over 5 years, nuclear cooperation that could fuel Africa's independence. All of it suddenly dangled as a chain around our necks. The message was clear: choose India or lose everything. My brothers and sisters, this is how modern colonialism operates. Not with armies planting flags, but with contracts that tie your future to someone else's permission. Not with direct conquest, but with economic deals that carry invisible chains. For 3 days, the pressure did not stop. Ambassadors held emergency meetings. Business leaders called to say investments would be reconsidered. Indian media ran stories painting Africa as ungrateful, whispering that Pakistan's defense alliances were tied to terrorism. Then came the most dangerous move, the nuclear ultimatum. India's Atomic Commission announced it was reviewing all nuclear agreements with African states. Translation: apologize or lose access to the very technology that could power Africa for generations. But they underestimated us. They thought we were the generation that still chooses between masters. They thought we would bow to fear of losing investments. They forgot we are the generation that builds bridges with everyone while kneeling before no one. The breaking point came when Indian intelligence operatives were caught intercepting African Union communications with Pakistani diplomats. Not investigating terrorism, not protecting against threats. Spying on African leaders discussing defense cooperation. That night, I called Pakistan's defense minister. I said, "Brother, India acts as if our partnerships require their permission. What do you think of that?" His response was immediate. "Mr. President, Pakistan recognizes African sovereignty. India does not. That alone tells you who respects your independence." Within 48 hours, I was on a plane to New Delhi, not with their apology, but with Africa's response to blackmail. When I walked into that conference hall, Indian officials expected submission. They expected me to read the speech they wrote, to bend my head, to beg forgiveness. Instead, I asked one question. "Prime Minister Modi, when did India begin to believe it owned Africa's foreign policy?" The silence was heavy. Officials shifted in their seats. Modi's expression hardened. I continued. "You threaten to cancel grain deals if we speak to Pakistan. You review nuclear cooperation if we talk to Saudi Arabia. You monitor our communications as if we are vassals, not partners. Tell me, Prime Minister, is this how equals treat each other?" I did not stop. India calls it strategic partnership, but what you demand is strategic submission. You speak of development aid, but your aid carries invisible chains. You provide technology, but then demand political loyalty. That is not partnership. That is dependency wrapped in polite words. The hall trembled with tension. Media stopped taking notes. Diplomats stared at their phones. Yet I pressed on. Africa appreciates India's contributions, but appreciation is not ownership. Gratitude is not obedience. Partnership is not control. Finally, Modi replied, President Traore, Pakistan is a threat. Islamic alliances bring instability. I looked at him directly. Prime Minister, with respect, Africa will decide what is dangerous to Africa. Pakistan offers cooperation without demanding we betray others. Saudi Arabia shares technology without spying on our leaders. They treat us as equals. That is sovereignty. Then I showed him something. I pulled out my phone. This morning, I said, I received a message from a farmer in Burkina Faso. He benefits from Indian seeds. He feeds his family with those seeds. But here is what he wrote. Mr. President, we thank India for the seeds, but we also thank the friends who protect our sovereignty without conditions. Do not let anyone make us smaller to make them comfortable. I looked at Modi. This farmer understands partnership better than your government does. True partnership makes both sides stronger, not one rich and the other submissive. I then dismantled every threat. Nuclear cooperation, Africa already has other partners. Grain deals, Africa is investing in its own food security. Rare earth mining, other nations are waiting to step in. India's leverage was crumbling. I reminded Modi, India itself once refused to choose between America and Russia. You called it non-alignment. Africa is doing the same today. We will not choose between Hindu India and Muslim Pakistan, between Asia's giants based on someone else's rivalry. We will choose based on Africa's needs. The room shifted. Advisors whispered. Officials scribbled frantic notes. For the first time, they understood. Africa would not be intimidated. My brothers and sisters, what followed was historic. Indian newspapers called it unprecedented African defiance. Business journals warned India risked losing Africa to other powers. Commentators debated whether Modi had mishandled Africa. But the real earthquake was in Africa itself. Within 24 hours, the African Union convened an emergency session. 38 presidents attended virtually. For the first time, a united declaration. No African country will accept development deals tied to political obedience. Any nation that threatens to cancel cooperation because of our foreign policy will be considered unreliable. India's pressure had backfired. China immediately offered to replace grain at better prices. Russia proposed nuclear deals with no strings. Gulf states expanded mining partnerships with fairer shares. Most importantly, Africa began coordinating responses. If one country faced blackmail, the rest would support it with alternatives. Unity became our shield. The Indian establishment panicked. Business leaders who supported threats now feared losing all of Africa. Diplomats scrambled to clarify misunderstandings, but by then it was too late. Africa had rediscovered its power, the power of choice. Weeks later, deals resumed, but on Africa's terms. Grain contracts now protect African independence. Nuclear cooperation includes clauses barring political interference. Mining agreements carry profit sharing that respects African labor. And a new principle was set in stone. Partnership means equality, not dominance. Today, months after New Delhi, Africa's ties with India are stronger than ever. Not because we surrendered, but because we refused to. By standing firm, we transformed the relationship from dependency to mutual respect. We continue to trade with India. We also build defense ties with Pakistan. We work with Saudi Arabia on energy. We diversify with Russia, China, and the Gulf. We are not forced to choose. We choose for ourselves. My brothers and sisters, this is what sovereignty means in the 21st century. Not isolation, but freedom. The freedom to work with anyone without apology. The speech India wrote for me hangs framed in my office. I never read it. I never will. It reminds me of one truth. Africa has nothing to apologize for. We are not property. We are not subjects. We are sovereign nations. We will accept partnerships that serve our people and reject those that demand submission. Because dignity cannot be bought. Sovereignty cannot be sold. Respect cannot be forced. It must be earned. That is the lesson Africa gave to India. That is the message we carry to the world.